Hound Dog.
You ain't nothing
That 1956 hit catapulted him and the new genre of rock and roll into worldwide fame. It fused genres in a way that mainstream American radio hadn't heard before. And history likes to credit the onset of this new sound to the king of rock and roll. But actually, the rock and roll sound had already been around for years, and Hound Dog had already been made a hit by someone else. That someone was Willie Mae Thornton, better known as Big Mama Thornton, a 6-foot-tall, fiery blues musician from the Deep South who, alongside other black musicians throughout America, helped pioneer the sound and attitude that rock and roll would later be known for. Her voice? Well, hear it for yourself.
You ain't nothing but a hound.
So why did Elvis's version spur the world to crown a king, while Willie Mae was left behind? Today's lesson is about Big Mama Thornton. Willie Mae Thornton was born in 1926 in the rural crossroads town of Ayrton, Alabama. It was the Jim Crow South, where every law, every sidewalk, every front porch step was segregated by design. Willie Mae Thornton got her start singing in the church. Her father was a Baptist preacher and her mother sang in the choir. Then, at 14, her mother died. And yet, Willie Mae continued to sing, loud enough to be noticed.
Gonna feel happy someday.
That same year, a traveling music promoter came through town, Sammy Green. He ran the Hot Harlem Review, a raucous, all-black variety show of singers, dancers, and comedians that crisscrossed the South, performing in juke joints, tent shows, and segregated theaters. He heard Willie Mae sing and knew he had found something special. So she packed a small bag and left Ayrton and the church behind. No formal education, no real safety net, just her voice, her grief, and a place on a tour bus headed into the heart of segregated America. For the next 7 years, she performed almost every night, learning to command a stage, to hold a crowd, to carve out space for herself in a world that wasn't built to let her shine. In the early 1940s, when Willie Mae was in her early 20s, the Hot Harlem Review rolled into Houston. Willie Mae stepped into the next chapter of her life. Houston had become a black music capital, not in name, but in sound. There you could hear blues guitars wailing along Zydeco accordions, gospel choirs harmonizing next to jazz horns, country twang rubbing shoulders with boogie-woogie bass lines. For Willie Mae, it was a musical ecosystem, and she knew she belonged in it. So she stayed. In 1951, she signed with Peacock Records, a small but influential black-owned label that recorded gospel and rhythm and blues out of a makeshift studio in the city. And by then, she wasn't just Willie Mae Thornton. She was Big Mama Thornton. Standing at 6 feet tall, she wore tailored suits, a pocket watch, sometimes a fedora. But it was her voice that truly set her apart. And in 1952, two white songwriters, Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, walked into the studio and heard her sing. They weren't prepared. Lieber later said, quote, "She looked like the biggest, baddest, saltiest chick you ever seen. And she had a voice to match." They wanted to write something as bold as she was. And what they came up with was Hound Dog. 12 bars, 3 chords, 1 unforgettable chorus.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog. When snooping around my door.
It wasn't about heartbreak. It wasn't sweet. It was a woman calling out a man who was up to no good. Her version of Hound Dog sold 500,000 copies and spent 14 weeks on the top of the rhythm and blues charts. But it never appeared on the pop charts. At the time, music was segregated just like everything else in America. Black artists were placed on separate charts called race records, later renamed rhythm and blues. And radio stations, record stores, and promoters largely kept those songs from reaching white audiences. So no matter how successful Big Mama was, her hit couldn't cross over into the mainstream. The industry kept the charts and the profits divided by race. She was paid $500 total for her original recording of Hound Dog in 1952. That was a flat fee, no royalties, no residuals. Then, 4 years after Big Mama's release, in 1956, Elvis Presley recorded his version of Hound Dog. It was faster, slicker, tailored for white radio. The single went on to become a global hit and sold over 10 million copies. So while the writers, Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, were credited and paid, the performer who helped make it iconic, Big Mama, was left out. And of course, it's common practice for musicians to cover other musicians' songs, but usually they're compensated for it. This wasn't an oversight. It was the business model. The music industry at the time had a system. Black artists created, white artists crossed over. Labels profited by repackaging black sound for white audiences. As Sun Records founder Sam Phillips put it, quote, "If I could find a white man who had the black sound and the black feel, I could make $1 billion. And so he did. He found Elvis. Big Mama kept touring, writing, and performing. One of her original songs, Ball and Chain, was picked up by Janis Joplin in 1967, who idolized her and turned it into a career-defining hit.
Sitting by my window, Big Mama was sitting down looking at the rain. Down by my window, just looking out at the rain.
In this case, Big Mama did own the rights to the song. Yet, she did not initially receive credit or payment and wouldn't for 7 years after Joplin popularized it. It's almost like the pattern is not that hard to see. Big Mama was also trailblazing the lifestyle of the rock stars who would come after her, before the term rock star even existed. She was wild, androgynous, raw. She drank, cursed, wore men's suits, and blew the roof off every room she played in. But no matter how bright she burned, the spotlight always seemed to land on someone else. She died in 1984 in a Los Angeles boarding house at the age of 57. And like so many women who shaped American music, buried in an unmarked grave. And yet, the sound she created echoed far beyond her final performance. From Janis Joplin calling Big Mama her North Star, and Otis Redding channeling Big Mama's church-born gospel blues, to Elvis, Tina Turner, Led Zeppelin, Amy Winehouse, the Alabama Shakes, the list goes on. Artists for generations have stood in her lineage. Thank you, Willie Mae Thornton, for laying the groundwork for generations of rock and roll. For giving the world the gift of your authenticity, your sound, and your songs. Your story inspires us to sing louder, stand taller, and take up the space we all deserve.